In the year 2389, Earth's greatest luxury wasn't gold, water, or even breathable air, it was time, rewound and polished like sea glass. And the only place to reclaim it was Oceanus Theta, a distant blue orb where gravity and planetary spin slithered through spacetime, rewinding human cells like cassette tape. The wealthy called it retirement in reverse. When he stepped aboard the Cavatina, Alden Marix had already buried 3 wives, outlived all his heirs, and signed away half his fortune for a 12-year rejuvenation cruise across the silky oceans of Oceanus. By Earth reckoning, he would return 30 again. She boarded by miracle. Reya Calder was 19, a cocktail server from Old Savannah with lungs scarred by refinery dust and dreams smothered in debt. She'd won the Ministry of Renewal's time tourism lottery, a carrot dangled to keep the lower classes dreaming. Society in the Age of Return. By the late 24th century, humanity had not eradicated poverty, disease, or inequality, but it had found a way to delay death. Oceanus Theta became a symbol of immortality for hire. Those who could afford the passage could buy back their youth, over and over. This led to a stratification more extreme than any in history. The wealthy elite, known colloquially as the returners, cycled through youth like fashion trends. Some were on their 7th or 8th loop, passing themselves off as their own descendants. High society became obsessed with curating the perfect life, not once, but repeatedly.
In contrast, the majority lived in chronocastes, fixed social classes determined by age, income, and access to temporal rejuvenation. A 60-year-old manual laborer could be older than his own employer's great-great-granddaughter. Technology thrived, but culture fractured. The arts stagnated as youth became endless. Who needs innovation when you can relive your prime eternally? Politics of time. Governments evolved, or devolved, into a symbiosis of corporate-state alliances. The Ministry of Renewal, a supranational body, oversaw time voyage logistics, while megacorporations owned the cruisers, the rejuvenation rights, and even the data patterns of passengers. Democracy faded beneath bureaucracy. Voting rights were based on lived time, not biological age, so a 300-year-old magnate had exponentially more influence than a 50-year-old teacher who'd never left Earth. To prevent uprisings, the ministry instituted the Temporal Equity Lottery, a thin veil of hope for the poor. Every year, a handful of time-fair passages were awarded, just enough to keep society quiet. There was also a growing underground movement, the Chrono-Justice Front. Its members hacked returners' records, exposed corruption, and demanded a reset of the time economy. Some even called for dismantling Oceanus Theta's program entirely, arguing that tampering with time had warped the human spirit.
Her ticket came with 12 years and a shared bunk. She packed nothing but her mother's journal and a locket that no longer opened. They met on the observation deck, where stars knelt to kiss the waves. She was scribbling thoughts into her mother's journal. He offered her wine and called her a poet. She laughed and said he talked like a ghost. Over weeks, they circled each other like moons. The ship glided through cobalt storms and coral auroras, but the real voyage happened in hushed conversations, starlit dances, and the slow thaw of 2 lonely hearts. They knew what lay ahead. When they returned to Earth, Alden's body would be 31. Hers would be 7. Their memories intact. Their ages impossibly reversed. There was no cure for chronological dissonance. So on the final evening, they watched one last tide roll in beneath the glass dome. Reya handed him the locket, newly fixed. "Keep it," she whispered. "So I'll remember me." He kissed her forehead and promised he'd find her, someday.
The ship didn't sail so much as glide, an enormous, curved swan drifting across a planet of sapphire tides and ultraviolet mist. The passengers called it the Eternal Coast, though there were no shores, only endless gradients of blue that shimmered like silk under the twin moons. Inside, the Cavatina was part starliner, part art museum, part dream. 1,000 suites stacked like coral layers, every one optimized for gradual biological regression, tailored diets, synchronized gravity therapy, and hollow empathic music calibrated to unwind the cells. Alden's days were quiet, readings in the hydroponic library, tasting rooms with forgotten flavors of old earth, chess games against patrons who had once been kings and composers. Yet he found himself skipping the scheduled serenity more and more, wandering instead through the lower decks where the timefare passengers dined together. That's where Reya danced. Not for credits, just for joy. Every evening she spun barefoot across the circular glass ballroom, laughing with the others, her hair braided in sea-glow beads. She had a gravity to her that even the ship's engineers couldn't replicate. They began to meet in secret places, under the bioluminescent sea dome at midnight, in the planetary tide pools where jellyfish shimmered like lanterns, or tucked into the abandoned observatory tower where time didn't feel like it was slipping away, only curling gently inward. One night, they climbed the outer ring stairwell to the roof of the ship. Above them, stars frozen in a moment. Below, the endless tide. "You're getting younger," Reya whispered, tracing the line of his cheek. "You smile like someone who just remembered how." He could already feel it. His gray had gone to silver, then to ash blonde. His knees didn't ache. He dreamed again, sometimes of childhood, sometimes of her. And always of what they couldn't keep. They didn't talk much about the end. But they made a pact. To leave something behind before disembarking. A message, encrypted and hidden, in the ship's story logs. Not a cry for justice. Just, their memory. One truth preserved against the erasure of youth. Something neither gravity nor rotation could rewind.